Hello everyone, Professor Gridlock here. So I wanted to make a video about Congress. When people think about American government, Congress is the institution they are usually most frustrated with. We see this in polling, we see this in focus groups. The American people are frustrated with Congress. So we know that the approval ratings are consistently low. Lawmakers are criticized as maybe inefficient or partisan, and Congress is often and frequently described as broken. You've probably heard this in your own life, these criticisms of Congress against Congress. And yet, Congress remains one of the most powerful institutions in the American political system. It writes the laws, controls the budget, oversees the executive branch, and represents the people more directly than any other national institution. So understanding Congress means understanding both what it is designed to do and why it so often today struggles to do it well. So at its core, as we've been learning about since we were small children, Congress is the legislative branch of the federal government. Its most obvious responsibility is to make laws, but that is only one part of its role. Congress also represents constituents, controls federal spending, oversees the executive branch, and serves as a key arena for political confrontation and compromise. In our system of checks and balances that we have in the United States, Congress is designed to play this important role. Congress is bicameral, meaning it has two chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate. This structure is not done by accident. It did not emerge by accident. It was a compromise designed to balance population-based representation with state equality. The House reflects the will of the people more directly, with members elected every 2 years and districts based on population. The Senate, with equal representation for each state, regardless of their size, has longer terms, was designed to be more stable, more deliberative, and insulated from sudden shifts in public opinion. This bicameral structure makes lawmaking intentionally difficult. For a bill to become law, it must pass both chambers, often with very different priorities and political incentives, and then be signed by the president. The difficulty of passing legislation is not necessarily a flaw in the system. It is a feature meant to slow down decision making and prevent rash decisions and rash actions by Congress. That, of course, does generate frustration when people wonder, why isn't Congress doing more, or why doesn't Congress address this issue? Part of the answer is the design of Congress is to be slow, deliberative, and not make rash decisions and rash actions. So, beyond lawmaking, Congress plays a central role in representation. Members of Congress are expected to act as a link between citizens and federal government. They respond to constituent concerns, advocate for local interests, and help individuals navigate federal bureaucracy. This representational role explains why lawmakers spend so much time on constituency services and local issues, even when national problems may demand their attention. Congress also importantly holds the power of the purse. It controls taxation and federal spending, giving its enormous influence over public policy. Every major government program, from defense spending to Social Security to disaster relief, requires congressional approval. This power allows Congress to shape public policy indirectly by deciding what gets funded and what does not. So another crucial role of Congress is oversight. Congress monitors the executive branch through hearings, investigations, and budgetary control. Oversight is essential for accountability, especially given the size and power of the modern federal bureaucracy. When Congress is functioning well, oversight can expose corruption, inefficiency, and or abuse of power. When it is not functioning properly, executive authority tends to expand. So over time, the role of Congress has changed significantly. And there's a lot of debate within the political science scholarship between political scientists over how much and to what extent this has looked like. There is some agreement that in the early republic, Congress was clearly the dominant branch of government. Presidents were relatively weak, political parties were loosely organized, and lawmakers exercised substantial influence over national policy. That balance shifted during the 20th century. Economic crises, wars, and the growth of the administrative state increased the power of the executive branch. Presidents gained greater control over agenda setting, foreign policy, and emergency action, responding to emergencies. At the same time, Congress delegated more authority to executive agencies, often preferring to avoid responsibility for controversial decisions. Today, Congress often plays a reactive role, responding to presidential initiatives rather than leading policy development. This does not mean that Congress is powerless, but it does mean its influence is exercised differently, oftentimes through oversight, budget negotiations, or obstruction rather than proactive lawmaking. Sorry, that's my dog in the background. Sorry. Congress has also become far more partisan over time. Party polarization has increased sharply, especially since the late 20th century. Ideological overlap between the parties has declined, making compromise more difficult. Leadership has been more centralized, party locality more important, and cross-party cooperation far less common. This polarization has real consequences. It contributes to legislative gridlock, where major policy problems go unresolved for long periods. It increases reliance on short-term solutions, such as temporary funding bills, which if you've been paying attention to politics over the last year, you've heard these debates over keeping the government open, funding packages, and these short-term temporary funding bills, rather than comprehensive legislation. And it pushes power towards the executive branch, as presidents act unilaterally when Congress cannot agree or cannot pass bills or will not pass bills. So another major change involves committees and leadership. Committees were once the center of congressional power, where expertise developed in bipartisan cooperation was more common. While committees still matter, party leadership now exert greater control over the legislative agenda. This centralization helps parties pursue coherent strategies, but it also reduces opportunities for compromise, again, becoming more partisan, and individual initiatives. So Congress also faces increasing pressure from interest groups, donors, and even the media. Campaigns are expensive, and fundraising is a constant concern. Interest groups provide information, resources, and political support, but they also shape political priorities and incentives. Media coverage, especially in the age of social media, rewards conflict, sound bites, and symbolic gestures over careful deliberation. All of this contributes to the common criticisms of Congress. Many Americans see Congress as ineffective, overly partisan, disconnected from their everyday concerns, or more focused on re election than governing. Legislative gridlock frustrates voters who expect government to solve problems. High profile conflicts make Congress appear dysfunctional. At the same time, these criticisms often overlook these structural constraints Congress operates and has operated under. The institution was designed, again, to be slow, divided, and deliberative. It represents a large, diverse country with conflicting interests. Disagreement is not a sign of failure, it is the inevitable outcome of representative democracy. The real question is not whether Congress is contentious, but whether it can still function effectively amid that contention. So, despite its flaws, despite its flaws, Congress remains vitally important. It is the primary arena where national policy is debated, contested, and legitimized. It is where citizens' diverse interests are brought into conflict and sometimes into compromise. Even when Congress appears inactive, its presence shapes what other branches can and cannot do. Understanding Congress requires holding two ideas at the same time. First, Congress is often frustrating, slow, and deeply polarized. Second, Congress is essential to democratic governance. Its weaknesses reflect not just institutional design, but broader political divisions within American society. If democracy is messy, which we know it is, Congress is where that mess is most visible. And that visibility, uncomfortable as it may be, is part of what makes Congress such a central institution in American government. Thank you.